There are too many people. This is what you hear in a crowded train or in an IKEA on a Saturday, or be honest, if in the night your children decide to go into your bed because there are monsters under theirs. Hi, my name is Ian the Bay and this is The Good System, the podcast where we talk about systems, society and sustainable living. And sometimes we may have even a laugh. At least I try. And if you laugh about me, okay. Today we talk about overpopulation, the go-to excuse for climate change and an overcrowded elevator. You've heard it before. We are too many people. There's overpopulation on this planet. We are more than 8 billion people who are breathing, eating and doom scrolling all at the same time. But let's zoom out. Overpopulation isn't really about how many people live on this planet. It's about how we live on this planet. How do we feed and house all the people here on this planet called Earth? A person in a wealthy country may emit more CO2 in a week than some in a poorer country may emit in their entire life. And if you're a pop star flying into space, you achieve this in only 4 minutes. That's not overpopulation, that's overconsumption. And I totally get it if you think there are too many people. I have this feeling too when I'm in a crowded train or if I'm waiting in line at the supermarket to pay at the cashier, or if there are just 2 people in the same room with me. When I visit a wedding or another event with many people, I need a week to recover from it, to gain energy again. But I know it's not the other people, it's the system that forces me into RSVPing to a wedding party. The truth is, blaming overpopulation is convenient. It distracts from corporate emissions, from unsustainable supply chains, and from inactive politicians who do nothing against climate change. And it is also a very good excuse for racism, especially on social media, but everywhere else too. This is why it is so convenient to blame everyone else. The idea that too many people are the root for all environmental evil is simple. It's like saying the flooded bathroom is caused by water and not because your son has clogged the drain while showering and now everything is swimming and you have to clean it up, although you don't have the time and are stressed to make dinner. We've been told for decades that if we don't stop having babies, our planet will collapse. And yet we keep going because the problem isn't people, it's systems. It's how we organize our lives, how we use the resources, and how we pretend that infinitive growth is possible on a finite planet. And it's right, more people emit more CO2. But developing country, although they might have a bigger population than other countries in the Western world, have lower emissions than the developed countries, total and in particular per person. As said, the problem is not overpopulation, it's the overuse of our resources. And this doing is implemented in our current system. What's especially cruel in this system is that the people, the rich people who emit the most, suffer the least from it. It's the people in the poor countries who suffer the most. And this is where racism comes into the game. The argument of overpopulation often has an underlying racism because it insinuates that people with higher birth rates are the cause for climate change, which is not true because it is the Western countries who now have lower birth rates. And this is denying that the emitting of CO2 in Western countries has happened mostly after the industrialization. And with the industrialization, there was a decline in birth rates. So not more people caused the crisis, but more emissions. It's not about how many mouths we have. It's about how are these mouths living, driving, flying, scrolling. It's the system. The richest 10% are responsible for half of the global emissions. So it's not we are too many people, it's we have too many yachts. Overpopulation is the wrong villain. It's not about how many people live, but how do we live. I think I made it clear right now. When someone says overpopulation in Europe, they don't mean themselves. They mean the people in the global south. That's just colonial vibes in a green coat. And now for a moment, I know I spent the last several minutes to say there is no overpopulation, but let's pretend for a small amount of time that there is overpopulation. That must raise the question, who is too much? Are there too many babies? Are there too many elderly people? Are there too many rich people? Are there too many sick people? Who decides who is too much? This is a very dangerous thought. There were people in the past who tried to make rules about who is allowed to live and who is not. And if you don't know, I tell you, it didn't work out so great. Whatever criteria you take to define this, you will discriminate people. But let's stop this thought about a new Holocaust. Overpopulation is not real, but there is population growth. And how can we organize this growth in a sustainable way? My suggestion, my suggestion, my suggestion, my suggestion, my suggestion, I would say we stop doing dumb things. Cities designed for cars, dump, endless sprawl, dumber. We need dense, efficient housing, local food systems, clean energy grids, and circular economies that don't treat resources like disposable tissues. You know what's unsustainable? A world where we keep building suburbs but forgetting to build the train there. I live in the city with my kids. We don't have a car because we don't need it. Our apartment is maybe too big, but still smaller than a single family home in the suburbs. We have everything nearby, and living in the city, in my opinion, is the most sustainable way in living. I made already a podcast episode about it. You can find it on your podcast app or in YouTube. I will link it in the show notes. There are still many things to do in this city, in Vienna, where I live. We need to increase the walkability and have more local amenities nearby. And this is all possible. The planet has resources to feed more than 10 billion people. And the latest projection from the UN says that population growth will peak at this number or even lower, because the projections of population growth has slowed down as the projections of the last years showed. And another positive thing, 2024 was the hottest year on record, and still we never produced as much food as before. So we can feed all the people that will live on this planet, even if climate change makes it harder for us to raise crops. And there are countries who have already a negative population growth, where the population declines. There are countries in Europe, or China is the biggest example. China is especially interesting because it's always named by the deniers who don't want to change anything or want to do anything against the climate change. They say, but what about China? China not only declines in population, but also in emission per capita. So what about China? A slowing population growth, or even worse for some people, a declining population, brings the system on the edge because it's built on growth, on economic growth and on population growth. The system as it exists right now only works if the population grows, No growth in people, no more babies, no more business. And so we have a phenomenon that people who fear overpopulation may switch and fear underpopulation, declining population, because it brings several problems. How do we build our economy? How will we build our democracy or society if there are fewer people? And of course, the biggest fear is that the population growth can only exist with migration. And if there is one thing that people hate more than babies, it's migrants. And there are problems if the population declines. An aging society, pensions are underfunded, and the schools are empty. But the problem are not the migrants or the missing babies. The problem again is the systems. So what do we need? We need smarter policies, sustainable systems, and long-term thinking. Good luck selling this to short-term thinking politicians. But maybe politicians are not the biggest problem. It's the people. Elderly people tend to love conservative politics that pretends to preserve the status quo, but often is a way backward. So we have to convince these people that change is good and that we have to do it. Now, let's have a small digression. And it's the big elephant in the room. With ever more people, is it still okay? Is it still sustainable to have kids? Is it immoral to have children in a climate crisis? No. People are not pollution. Children are not emissions. They are human beings, future thinkers, voters, designers, and activists. And yes, you won't believe it if you see the small children and all the trash they produce and how stupid they are. But kids are our future, and the future is what we are working for. And children often ask the most important questions like, why are there no solar panels on the roof of my school? Why can't I play on the street? Or why does my poo taste so funny? The world doesn't need fewer children. It needs better systems for raising them sustainably. Whenever we need to do hard things, it's the women who need to do it. And in challenging climate change and the so-called overpopulation, we need the women. You want lower birth rates? Then give women autonomy. Educate girls, support women's health, and stop treating childcare as a private burden. And while you're at it, build systems that support parents, because, as I said, we still need kids in the future. Countries with strong education, a good healthcare system, and a big social net don't only create happier citizens, they also tend to have a slower population growth. Imagine that. But with slower population growth, another problem occurs if the system is not built right. Because in many societies, people want a male offspring. Because often there is the thinking that a man, can provide a family, and a woman not. And if you have a daughter, you may have to pay a dowry at the wedding, who you maybe can't afford. This is why it is so important that we build a system where it is irrelevant if you're a man or a woman, where they have the same status, where both can easily provide a family if it has to be the way that only one can work or get the money. This is one of the many reasons why equity is so important. And the key to that is education. I also made already a whole episode about education. I will also link it in the show notes, because it has shown that women who get educated get fewer kids and have a better social status, and the whole society is better with educated people. And we need a system with a good healthcare and a good social net with pensions and so on. Because in poor countries where there isn't a social net, you depend on your family. Depend on that someone gives you money in your family, that there's someone able to do that. And it's nothing wrong to care for your parents or your siblings if you like them and want to be with them in the same room. no, it's nothing wrong with that to help others, to help your family. But it's wrong to singularly depend on your family if there is no social net that helps you. Because what if you don't have the money? Or if you're not able to work? What if you have to care about your sick parents because there is no social care and no health care? Then you have no money and you can't live in this system. This is what we have right now, and this is something we need to change. And this better system helps us to prevent us from overpopulation. Here's the thing. Overpopulation feels like a problem, like if the elevator is crowded and someone brings his bike, but really it's a systems problem dressed in people blaming. So, no, we are not overpopulated and maybe never will. We are over-resourced, over-consuming, and sometimes even overwhelmed. But people, we are full of potential. The more minds work on a sustainable solution, the better. And we need one. We need to build a better system. We need better agriculture. We need education. We need better power grid. We need better transportation. We need better cities and many things more. Let's come together and do this. And don't think about overpopulation. Again and again and again, because I so often heard that we have overpopulation. I say it once more, maybe twice, maybe 3 times, but now I say it. We do not have overpopulation on this planet. Maybe there are places where too many people live for the resources that are available, but for the whole planet, there is no overpopulation. It's a hard topic to talk about because it touches identity, inequality, and who gets a future. But we can talk about it. We have to talk about it with nuance, with data, and yes, of course, with jokes. So the next time you hear someone say there are too many people, you may ask, too many people for what kind of system? So let's stop blaming babies for what billionaires broke. And let's build a system that works for everyone. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Good System podcast. If you want to go in more depth of this topic, I have written a blog post about it. You will find the link to this article in the show notes. And if you are listening to this podcast on your favorite podcast app, please give it a review. It helps me a lot. If you watch this on YouTube, then please leave a comment and maybe even subscribe to the channel, which you can also do on your favorite podcast app. This podcast is also available on Spotify, where, if I don't forget to put it up, will also be the video version of it that you can see on YouTube. I have also a newsletter that comes monthly. You can subscribe to it. You guessed it, the link is in the show notes. And when you are already in message mode, then why not forward this episode to someone who still says there are too many people. Till next time, thank you. I'm Ian the Bay.